This episode, we are going to apply our knowledge of concentrations and solutions to preparing an actual household bleach cleaner. You'll notice that behind me I already have some materials prepared. So let's not waste any more time. Alright, here are a couple of the things that we're going to be needing to actually perform this experiment. I'm going to be making use of the kitchen scale. I just have 4 empty glasses right there. If you attempt any sort of experiment like this at home, make sure that your glasses are thoroughly washed first. I have some blue food coloring here. This is optional. Bleach cleaner here. This is what I'm going to be diluting. What we know as bleach is actually sodium hypochlorite. So sodium hypochlorite. Using your IUPAC naming rules that you're all really good at by now, you should be able to determine the chemical formula of what is in here. If you are choosing to perform this experiment at home, please always read the package instructions on the label. Bleach, it is never to be mixed with other household cleaners, never to be mixed with any acidic products. If you put it into a container, make sure that that container is very, very well rinsed out. Flasks as well, just because I thought, chemistry, and also it makes the measuring a little bit easier. A funnel, so that I can actually transfer some of the materials more easily into these containers. If we were to actually perform this in the lab, you would probably not be using these things. I'm simply using what I have available to me. All right, my first step here is going to be preparing the bleach. If you take a look at the label on any container of bleach, the label instructions will usually tell you how you need to dilute the product. You cannot use concentrated bleach to clean. Reading the label tells us that to dilute it, we are to use 40 milliliters of this bleach solution per 1 liter of water. I'm gonna be preparing 500 milliliters of main bleach solution, so I'll be using about 20 milliliters of the bleach. Bleach has a density of about 1.206 grams per milliliter. So if I need 20 milliliters of bleach, I'll be needing about 24 grams. Probably make sure I'm using my funnel there just to avoid some potential splash of bleach. And I'm going to carefully transfer 24 grams of bleach solution into my flask. It won't be too much. Okay, we're already there. This is something you can use for your first calculation. We have 25 grams of bleach going into this solution. All right, now that I have my 25 grams of bleach in here, all I'm gonna do is I'm just going to get some tap water and fill this up to the 500 mark. And then I'll know that I'll have prepared the bleach solution as per the package instructions. I now have diluted the bleach solution to 500 milliliters. So we took 25 grams and then I diluted it to a total of 500 milliliters. So this is the stock solution. That's what we've done. We've just created a stock solution. This is basically your main solution from which everything else originates. All right, so per the label instructions, after you make a stock solution of bleach, you are supposed to let it sit for approximately 10 minutes, which is what I did off camera. But I have prepared the appropriate concentration. I just added some food coloring to this solution as well. This is just going to give us a pigment so that we get a visual indicator of each successive dilution. So the purpose of the blue food coloring was just to provide a visual indicator of the bleach and how concentrated or diluted it might be. You can assume that the volume of the food coloring added was negligible. It's not going to impact your calculations at all. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be performing serial dilutions. Now, serial dilution is when each successive dilution, the concentrations are reduced by the same factor. I'll be getting 20 milliliters of stock solution in this tiny flask, and then I'll be diluting it to a total volume of 200 milliliters in this larger flask. And then we're just going to be repeating those dilutions a few times so that we get a nice visual. So I'm going to add my funnel. That's just going to make sure that we can avoid some spillage very carefully. Add 20 milliliters. All right, so we've got 20 milliliters of that. And then we'll take our bigger flask, transfer this entire thing in. And then I'm just gonna be adding some tap water so that we get to 200 milliliters. All right, we've performed our first serial dilution. I took 20 milliliters of this stock solution, added it to this flask, and then diluted it with water to a total volume of 200 milliliters. So you can even see there, we have a visual indicator because of the food coloring. We can see which one looks more concentrated and which one looks less concentrated. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep diluting. So we'll take this first dilution solution and I'm going to get 20 milliliters of that to prepare our next dilution. So very, very carefully, get 20 milliliters into a tiny flask. All right, so we got 20 milliliters of our first diluted solution. And then with my leftover of our first dilution, I'm just gonna add it to an empty glass. And this is so that we can visually compare each dilution in our series at the end of the experiment. I'm gonna dilute that first diluted solution further. So I'm taking 20 milliliters of that solution, bringing back the bigger flask. I'll transfer everything into here and then add tap water to dilute this. All right, so I diluted this solution to approximately 200 milliliters. And just to visually compare, this was our stock. This was our first dilution. So you can definitely see the concentration difference. Like before, get 20 milliliters in tiny flask. I've got about 20 milliliters there. Leftover is gonna go in here. And now with this 20 milliliters approximately back into the bigger flask, and then dilute this again to 200. All right, so now I've made a third dilution. You know what's coming next. I'm gonna get my funnel, transfer 20 milliliters into tiny flask. Got 20 milliliters of that ready to dilute a final time. I'm gonna transfer my leftovers from dilution 3. All right, last one. So we're taking our 20 mils, add it back into big flask, and then I'll just add the tap water to bring us up to 200 and perform our final dilution. I'll save 20 milliliters of this just so we have an equal volume of each dilution to compare. 20 milliliters of that off to the side for the leftovers into. All right, so while some of these did definitely lose a bit of their pigmentation because of the bleach, we still do have a fairly nice visual. This one here was our stock solution. We have dilution 1, we have dilution 2, dilution 3, and dilution 4. What does this likely mean for the concentration of each successive dilution? All right, so there we have it. We have prepared a solution of bleach cleaner that you would actually use in your house as per the label instructions. And then we performed serial dilutions to get a different concentration of bleach within each one. So what's gonna be your job now for this household chem episode is just go through for each of these dilutions, as well as our stock solution, perform the molarity calculations and tell me what's the concentration of bleach within each solution. So please get started on that. Any questions at all, please let me know. And right now, I have got to go clean up.